get a good look at him if we assess he's safe or when we'll move forward.
Start with 35. Start with 35.
Western navies are hunting down Somali pirates in the Indian Ocean.
So they've got their hands in the air, waving?
Yeah, I bet they have.
Desperate men from a failed state are trying to hold the world's shipping trade to ransom.
Weapons remain tight. Weapons tight.
Criminal gangs who are proving hard to deter.
Hostage situation being brought down on the port waster, clearing out to port.
But can this show of force rid the high seas of these ruthless bandits?
Good morning, HMS Cornwall. This is the Officer Watch with your morning sit rep. It's a beautiful day in the Indian Ocean for counter-piracy patrols.
HMS Cornwall is on a 6-month counter-piracy mission off the Somali coast, patrolling the seas that are now the most dangerous in the world. These are the waters in which pirate gangs operate, looking for anything from small yachts to large cargo vessels to make their fortune. From the ship's Lynx helicopter, a detachment of Royal Marines practice fast rope descents. This year alone, there have been more than 140 pirate attacks, and Cornwall's preparing to confront them. The Marines go through room clearance drills, with the Cornwall's crew playing the role of the pirates.
Get down! Put your weapon down!
Bang! Bang! Bang!
Down on your right as well. Down on your right, Woody. Get out! Come to me. Walk towards me. Kneel down, kneel down. Kneel down.
This, in theory, is how they deal with a hostage situation. In reality, such confrontations are rare, not least because of the increasingly ruthless nature of the pirates.
I believe him in hold fire, or we can take him back up to the...
Earlier this year, a pirate group killed their 4 American hostages when they were surrounded by US warships. Few navies would risk this kind of rescue.
Iraq Africanus at 0917 this morning activated their distress alarm. The vessel was released from pirate control yesterday. The alarm was activated because the vessel was taking on water and they were requesting immediate assistance.
Each night, the ship's senior officers are briefed on the latest intelligence of pirate activity. They've been charting reports of attacks in the area. The captain thinks the presence of warships like the Cornwall is making life more difficult for the pirates.
The pushback from the multinational forces forced them into a rethink, and if you have a look, they haven't had a successful pirate attack for over a month now, so that I think they're struggling to understand what the multinational forces are up to. I think they're also under considerable pressure in the camps, particularly with respect to the Danish prisoners as well, which is probably leading them to just pause.
You're pretty sure that's a fisherman, not a pirate vessel? Yeah, absolutely.
The next morning, the Cornwall's Lynx helicopter takes to the skies, combing the vast horizon for any suspect vessel.
Hitman's unknown 22579, usual 2257.
Well, up here in the Lynx, you get a real sense of the challenges they're facing. There are about 20 or so warships now patrolling a vast ocean of millions of square miles. Just to give you a sense of scale, that's like having about half a dozen police cars patrolling the whole of Western Europe. The flight observation officer photographs each passing ship or boat. on the lookout for telltale signs like ladders, skiffs or weapons.
You happy? Yeah, happy with that. Roger, going right on 280.
From a distance, this could be the kind of dhow that pirates might use. But on closer inspection, it's just carrying livestock.
If that were a pirate vessel, there'd be it'd be a slightly smaller skiff. There'd be a lot more ladders. Okay, it's about to pass down the starboard side.
Modern-day pirates don't fly any flags to signal their intent.
It is a challenge. We have seen a lot of nothing on this deployment. There's a lot of blue sky, a lot of blue sea. And the challenge there is to retain focus, not just from the aircrew perspective, but from the guys on the ship, trying to keep everyone on point for weeks on end when they're just looking at the same, what looks like the same bit of ocean, is difficult. And then getting it right when you do find something becomes a challenge. But I think we've been successful. There are frustrations. The bottom line is the Royal Navy plays by the rules, and that's how we do it. I go through sort of peaks and troughs, wondering whether we can succeed here militarily. And then there's for the bigger question, can we actually defeat piracy at sea? Obviously, Somalia being unstable as it is, there will always be pirates coming out of Somalia until that issue is resolved.
It is a challenge keeping the ship's 250 crew focused. Weeks at sea, often without a pirate in sight. Times filled with the routines of exercise, drills and eating, with a few reminders of home.
Right, Finch, get some more custard?
Today the galley's serving Spotted Dick. This is not necessarily the life that every sailor expected, carrying out counter-piracy patrols.
I think from our level it's frustrating because we'd like to be making more of an obvious difference, i.e. catching more people, put more people off, but I understand that politically on the grand scheme of things we do make a difference. We're discouraging more than actually catching. That's what's frustrating.
You'd like to see
more guns, more fire, more catching people.
We're more of a deterrent than we are actually getting the go-ahead to do anything. Because the Americans, the Koreans and the Pakistanis actually get the go-ahead to do it, whereas we're more like, we back off a lot more.
We may catch pirates, we may have to release them, but while we've got them, that's them not committing acts of piracy for however long.
So it's worthwhile?
I think so.
And you're making a difference?
I think we've got to be, otherwise we wouldn't be out here.
More than 500 miles from land, an object has just been spotted drifting in the ocean. The captain, David Wilkinson, has been called to the bridge.
I think what we've probably got here is a Somali skiff, large outboard engine. We can see two POB, there might be somebody forward of the canopy.
They identify a Somali skiff, the kind of speedboat that pirates use to board merchant vessels.
So you ought to go in there, have a good look around. My initial suspicion is he's a disassociated pirate. He's got dislocated from his mothership.
Commander Wilkinson orders the Marines to investigate. They load their weapons and take to their boats. Cornwall's crew provides cover with the skiffs in their sights. It'll soon be surrounded with no chance of escape.
So they've got their hands in the air, waving?
Yeah, I bet they have.
Well, there's certainly a suspicion that this vessel is involved in piracy. After all, it's about 500 miles away from land. It's in a known pirate operating area, and it's got a large outboard motor, the kind that fishermen don't use. That said, it'll be much harder to prove that they are in fact pirates.
This skiff is about 150 miles away from an attack that took place 5 days ago. During that attack, the two skiffs that were helping get the pirates on board got dislocated from the action. There's every chance that these guys have tried to make their way back home independently, run out of fuel.
As daylight fades, the Marines board the vessel. The two Somalis claim to be just fishermen, but they've no fishing gear. But neither do they have any weapons. In the end, they're taken onto the Cornwall for questioning, but without any hard proof, this is now just a rescue operation.
My gut feeling is it looks like a pirate, it smells like a pirate, it probably is. What we had on that day were two people in a pirate skiff from Somalia, 600-700 miles away from home, in a pirate operating area. But what I can prove, and I'm burdened by the highest level of UK proof here, is that I had two chaps in a boat lost at sea. And therefore my international obligations are fairly clear. So in that case I had to embark them under the safety of life at sea regulations, and that was very clear to me from the outset.
The two men caught will be treated as guests until the Cornwall's closer to land. Even if they were involved in piracy, a brush with a warship may not prove to be much of a deterrent. For young men in Somalia, piracy's become a lucrative business, with tens of millions of dollars paid out each year for the release of cargo ships and crew. Its considerable arsenal is more than a match for the pirates' AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades. The crew carries out firing drills throughout its deployment here in the Indian Ocean.
03, engage. 03, shoot.
The ship's 4.5-inch gun can fire 25 rounds a minute, up to 12 nautical miles.
S2, check contact, bearing, green 110, range 004.
They're more likely to use the machine guns that surround the deck. They use a buoy as a target.
Target in the water.
Simulation for firing on a skiff. But so far on this mission, none of these weapons have been fired in anger.
He is pretty big.
It costs more than $50 million a year to keep a warship like this patrolling the Indian Ocean.
There are several piracy attacks every day. And
Dozens of nations, though, are prepared to make the investment. This is one of the world's main arteries for trade.
the quantity of items that are coming to the UK from the Indian Ocean is absolutely huge, and the pirates have an immense effect on our price products, if nothing else, at home, by putting our sailors' lives at risk and also our country's supply of resources at risk.
The Cornwalls already had some success. Just before we boarded, they'd caught this group of Somalis. A search of the dhow revealed weapons and hostages. They even admitted their intent to carry out piracy. But even that was not enough to send them to court. This is in fact the closest they got to jail. The Cornwalls' cage used for temporary detention. The reality is that few countries are either willing or able to prosecute pirates.
Unfortunately, you know, there are certain countries aren't trying at the moment, and when they do, and if we can get, you know, we've got arrangements set up, but I don't really know the ins and outs of that. I just do the custody side of things. As long as I do my job professionally, I'm happy that if it goes to court, they'll be tried and they'll be taken and they'll be dealt with correctly there. If they get released, they get released. It's unfortunate. However, that's way above my sort of authority. I can't do nothing about that. I do as I'm told.
While Western nations work out what to do with these criminal gangs at sea, in contrast, Somali pirates are still holding more than 500 people hostage, along with dozens of large merchant ships. There's just been a report of a pirate attack within a few hundred miles of the Cornwall's position. Once again, the ship's Lynx helicopter is launched to search the area. And this time, the captain thinks they may have their prey.
We've seen the vessel this morning, the aircraft's flown over the top, they're preparing their skiffs for an attack, they've got ladders, and we've also seen them doing the boat checks. I'm pretty certain this is our man.
Well, if they were going to see us, they would have done. Red light was on at 01J.
By night, the Cornwall's become a ghost ship, its deck lights turned off and its engines running low. It's closing in on the Dow or mothership to get a closer look. Here below in the nerve centre, the operations room, they use sophisticated surveillance to assess their target.
Similar sort of bow wave.
They're now within a mile of the Dow and can make out its skiffs trailing in the water.
He needs certain things to board a merchantman. He needs his skiffs, his ladders, the intent and the ability to get in the right area. If you take any of those away from him, he can't do piracy. So it could be as simple as getting him to throw his ladders over the side. He can't board, therefore he has to go home. And then he's got to explain himself to Mr. Big of why he's come back empty-handed again. I don't think that is a person.
As a last resort, the Cornwall could use some of its considerable firepower to disable the Dow skiffs. The captain requests permission from London to launch an attack the next morning. Daybreak, and there's an added complication on the horizon. This is the big merchant ship that came within just a mile of the suspect pirate vessel. HMS Cornwall is now escorting her to safety, but in doing so, she's given away her position.
It is a cat and mouse game. So we've manoeuvred at high speed now to get between the pirates and the merchantman to provide him with protection. There is a chance that these pirates will spot him early, put their skiffs in the water, in which case that's when we're going to pounce.
After escorting the merchant ship to safety, HMS Cornwall returns for the kill. While down below, the Marines prepare for a possible boarding mission. On deck, the crew don protective clothing. Weapons now loaded and aimed to take out the skiffs.
مركبك أجاجاركنا كنوا إسبحي سجا إذا مدى بدأ كسونقو موجودة لحية تبنات وانكبحي.
From the bridge, the Somali interpreter broadcasts a final warning to surrender. There's no response. But just as they prepare to open fire, there's movement on the Dow's deck.
PO, this is Captain. Hostage situation being brought down on the port waystar, clearing out to port. All positions, this is the Captain. Weapons remain tight. Weapons tight.
Green 120.
The Lynx, which had been monitoring the situation from the air, returns to confirm that those on board the Dow were armed.
There was one person seen on the upper deck with an RPG, so pirates. Their intent remained relatively benign when we were on scene. A couple of guys milling around the upper deck, but no general interest in the helo. We were then cleared out for the ship to close in, and as the ship closed in, we were told that it was a stop due to a hostage situation. Unfortunately, we cleared out at the time and didn't see any of that, so we're off to a debrief now to see what actually happened.
With hostages this time, the mission was too risky. But the Cornwall passes on the Dow's position to a nearby US warship, able to target at night.
36 hours later, the Americans were able to shoot out the skiffs and achieve a takedown on that vessel. So the vessel hasn't been taken, but the skiffs have gone, and the vessel is now making its way back to Somalia with a non-profitable mission. They got nowhere for all that fuel and time.
Back in sight of land, the Cornwall prepares to release the 2 Somali fishermen they picked up earlier. They're given just enough petrol and water to make it back to shore. Commander Wilkinson offers them advice as their boat's lowered back into the water.
I suggested to them that they actually should go back to the pirate leaders. I wanted them to explain to them that on this ship they'd been treated appropriately, and that some of the instances we've seen of merchantmen being harmed, both physically and mentally, is not the way to go forward. And they need to take that message back to the pirates. The other one is that if you're seen out here again by me or any of the coalition ships, things won't go so easy the next time round.
Well, the two guests who've been on board Cornwall for the last few days are now being released with the northern coast of Somalia just in sight. You have to say, much to the frustration of the crew on board here, most of whom believe that they were involved in some way in piracy. That said, even if they were pirates, this is probably exactly what would happen to them. Caught and then released. In fact, none of those picked up by the Cornwall, even the 17 who admitted they were pirates, have ended up in court, yet alone jail. For the crew, it's hard to swallow.
If we spend all this money being out here, why do we need to release them? Stuff like that, you know what I mean?
I think there's more to it than just fishermen, to be fair, like. If you can't prove anything, you can't prove anything, can you? So you just got to let them go.
The truth is, even if they were pirates, this is probably exactly what you'd have had to do, isn't it? Is that a bit frustrating?
A little bit, yeah. Gets on your nerves after a while.
But yeah, we're all making a bit of difference here. Yeah. But it's things like that, I'd say, yeah, it is frustrating. Just picking them up, dropping them off.
There isn't enough bullets and there isn't enough jail cells to stop people in Somalia taking to piracy. What we've got to do is make it unprofitable. Every time they come out, they meet a warship and that turns them away. I don't know whether we're winning or losing, and maybe I shouldn't have to worry too much about that. We deliver our mission, but what I'd hate to think about, if there wasn't the Navy out here, I think it'd be like the Wild West.
This is the last voyage for HMS Cornwall. When she returns home, she'll be decommissioned, a casualty of the UK's defence cuts. Other ships will carry on the mission. Few seafaring nations can afford to ignore the threat from piracy. But is military might enough to end this scourge of the high seas, when ultimately they're just dealing with the symptoms and not the cause?